Earlier this month marked the 100th anniversary of when boxing officially became $1 million business. Jack Dempsey fought Georges Carpentier, July 2nd, 1921. An incredible moment in boxing history. Around 80,000 plus fans. We all know how much Carl Froch likes to talk about his fight with George Groves. Well, this was back in 1921 in a very quickly, haphazardly made wooden stadium. Boyle's 30 acres, a certain area in New Jersey. And it was much harder to get to than Wembley is these days. All kinds of humanity spilled into this saucer-like area, including thousands of women who wanted to see Gorgeous George try and do his thing. He was cast as the war hero. Jack Dempsey did not serve in World War One, and some people used that as an angle to say he was a draft dodger. You know, this was the early evidence of, you know, creating that narrative going into a fight which just really buzzed the masses. People were excited. People wanted to see this fight. I think people were paying to try and get tickets just before the fight was happening, and they absolutely loaded up this wooden stadium. The pictures from that historic moment, I think, are some of the best in boxing history. You've got this precariously positioned platform with an old school film device, obviously recording the fight. And it just looks amazing still, that amount of people. 80,000, of course, is still a huge stadium by any standard. To see it back then when it was so hard to get to, when, you know, trains were less frequent, a lot more dangerous. It was just an amazing moment. Was called Fight of the Century, one of a handful, and didn't really turn out to be. Jack Dempsey, really living up to his nickname of the Manasseh Mauler, really mauled the Frenchman. Tex Rickard, the mastermind behind this, you know, it would be correct to say that Don King was another Tex Rickard. There's apparently the story that he said to Jack Dempsey before this momentous occasion, "Don't kill boxing. Don't kill him straight away. Let it at least go a little bit." And if you look at the footage, there's a moment in the first round where Dempsey just goes at Carpentier, hits him with many shots on the inside, and he's wobbling. And row after row of people start standing up to take notes. Everyone trying to get a look at the action. There's no screens about. You've got all these people. They have to stand to try and see what's happening on this tiny little square in the middle. Dempsey mauls him for a little bit and then steps off. I think Dempsey kind of knew, having a 16-pound advantage over the Frenchman. I think it was about 188 to 172. More of a light heavyweight Carpentier. I think he somewhat knew the responsibility he had that day to not make it a complete wipeout of a fight. It almost backfired in the second round because Dempsey got hit with a very good right hand. Knocked off balance, buzzed momentarily. And in that moment, apparently Carpentier unfortunately broke his thumb as well, which really spelled his doom. At this point, Jack Dempsey was an active champion. He'd had 2 fights in 1920. Now he fought Carpentier in July of 21. He was 26 years of age. He was in the prime of his career. A very versatile, dangerous type of slugger with fleet feet. And part of the reason he was called the Manasseh Mauler is because he was so good on the inside. Short shots to the body, very rough inside. Rabbit punches, liver punches would not leave you alone. And Carpentier was bloodied and weak early. This was a light heavyweight who was getting beaten up quickly. I think after Jack got a little bit rocked, he thought, right, let's get this fight by the scruff. And it's a shame that it's one of, I think, all of Dempsey's fights you won't find complete. When you watch it, I think some sequences are jumbled up, some are missing. It's only really when you get, I think, to Joe Lewis's fights that you start finding complete fights. But the Dempsey, the Willard one, the Carpentier one, these aren't complete fights. But you do see, you know, little highlights of basically what happened. And Carpentier just didn't have the strength. One of the people watching this was James J. Corbett, of course, the man who dethroned John L. Sullivan. And he could see that Dempsey was just too physically strong for him. Dempsey was fighting more of a measured kind of fight. He wasn't going at him like Willard when he was scared for his life, when his own dad had bet against him. Faced against such a bigger man who'd taken so much punishment against Jack Johnson and still won. No, this time I think Dempsey knew he had the beating of Carpentier. He fights a measured fight. He's a bit more upright. He utilizes a bit of a cross-arm defense and just quickly wears him down. Ends the fight in the 4th round with a right hand after flooring him a few times. Amazing occasion. There was never going to be a rematch. Carpentier knew that. It was too definitive. And I think that was the last we saw of a prime Jack Dempsey before he took 2 years out and came back in 23. Now, apparently after Dempsey won, taking at least hundreds of thousands of dollars for his 4 rounds of work, he sent his mum some kind of telegram in which at the end of it, I think he put hugs and kisses.